we are called to something transcendent. We need to serve something bigger than ourselves. Christ and his church, God, even if you're not a Christian, to serve God in some way is a very high calling. It's always the most difficult is starting. In the spiritual life, the devil opposes us with prayer. You have to force yourself often to do it. Learn to stand up for yourself, to trust in your own opinions, to look another man in the eye, to shake hands firmly, to have a little bit of faith in yourself. The world needs young men right now. They need young men to step into their authority and their power and the fullness of their manhood and give their gifts to the world.
Remember, adversity is your advantage.
Hey friends, if you're new to the show, my name is Bryce Henson. Welcome to the CEO Podcast, and very excited to introduce my friend, Father Michael. Father Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and pleased to be with all of your guests here as well.
Thank you. Well, this show is about teaching leadership, about promoting capitalism, defending free speech. You are a leadership expert, one of self, and then also leading congregations and an incredible amount of people in your community. So very excited to tap into your wisdom today. And
thank you. I'll see if I've got any left that I can share.
I think you'll be just fine. Now, you're a man of faith. You're a Orthodox priest.
I am an Orthodox priest.
So can we unpack that? Can you tell us a little bit of the journey, if you will, into priesthood, and really what was the motivation, I guess, the touch with God that led you to the path?
Yeah, that's an easy story. I was raised, I'm from East Texas, from a very small town in East Texas where I was related to half the town. One of those huge extended Southern families with a matriarch and my great-grandmother and all of that is what you see. And my mother and I were Catholic. Everybody else was Southern Baptist, was fundamentalist. But my grandfather was a Cajun from Louisiana who slipped across the border and found my grandmother. So he was Catholic, so my mother was Catholic. So we were raised Catholic. And I remember going to Mass when I was a child. My daddy was killed in an industrial accident when I was 8 years old. That is the great tragedy of my life that still has its marks on me today. And my mother says, my sister, I know, a few years later, it affected us badly. My sister turned to pot, later to alcohol. She was suicidal at 16, was a heroin addict after that, and died in drug-related violence when she was 22. My mother said, "Oh, Michael, you stuck your nose in a Bible and never took it out," which I don't really remember being accurate. I like going to church, but I always did. And my mother remarried. We were young. My sister were 8 and 7 years old. And Mama remarried. She's 29 and a widow with 2 kids to support and no income.
Wow. So
she remarried about a year and a half later. And my stepdaddy was from South Texas, down on the Mexican border. So we relocated down there. And I found the move difficult personally. I was the fat kid, socially awkward and all, and the new kid in a school. I wasn't so much bullied, but I ended up in a bad crowd. And I was stealing from the school. And I got caught. So my mother, even though she had not been to church, she got very mad at God after Dad died, and she refused to go back to church. But she could lay on Catholic guilt with the best of them. Stealing is a mortal sin. You will go to hell for this. And so I was kind of mortified. Oh, Lord have mercy. So I went to confession really for the first time in my life. I do not remember the confession. I was scared to death. I was on the verge of tears. Thank God there was a very gentle priest who realized he had a wounded soul on the other side of that screen. And I remember he was very gentle with me. I remember no details. But I walked out of the church. Now remember, this is South Texas, so it's very subtropical, like Florida. It was February the 4th, 1975 at 4:55 in the afternoon. And it was nice, it was like 60, 65 degrees. And suddenly the world changed. The light went golden. I heard the sound that creation sings to its creator. I can't describe it except to say that grass is soprano and trees are bass. That's as close as I can come. And I knew in an instant that there was a God, he was personal, and that he loved me. And it turned me inside out. And I'm here today out of gratitude for that event. I never had another one like it. When I was young and stupid, or younger and stupider, I tried to manufacture another event like that. But, those are very often once in a lifetime things. And I realized as I got older, one was enough. And I've been running on it ever since. And this is why when I speak, a lot of times I'm very, very big on gratitude, because I am very grateful for what God did for me. And I think people need to be a little more grateful. It opens up so much.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Well, I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for your wisdom. We were talking off camera. I've always been attracted to wisdom. I was very close to my grandmother, and you have this in spades. For our audience, we're here live in Scottsdale, Arizona at the BK Live event.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Father Michael just presented, and we're here, shooting this podcast. And it was just incredible for you to pour into the audience, pour leadership, pour truth, and really see the connection, not only all the audience, but me as well.
Thank you.
Now, you're a very untraditional priest, at least from my perspective. Number one, you're very wise, which I guess would fit the bill.
Oh, well, yeah, that's sort of stock in trade. I'm not the only wise priest, and I'd even quibble about how wise I really am. But
well, you're very humble, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're very active, a thought leader, and you're extremely into fitness. In fact, in your 50s, you became a bodybuilder. So
I did.
We'd love to unpack that, and I want to talk a little bit about bodybuilding and how that came to be, because I'm certainly interested. I know our audience is, and then we'll dovetail that into really self-leadership.
Yeah, I know it's part of who I am, but I mean, everybody wants to know that piece, and it's okay. I think it was shortly after Dad died, when I was 8, I saw the old Charles Atlas ads in the back of comic books. The one where the bully's kicking sand in the face of the guy on the beach with his girlfriend, and he can't stand up to the bully. So he goes home and kicks over the chair and risks a 3-cent stamp to send away for the Charles Atlas course. And he gets big and muscular and gives the bully his due. And I said, I want to look like that. Maybe I thought that if I were stronger, I wouldn't die like my dad did. I've spent 60 years trying to figure out where that all came from. I just give up on it. The fact is, I thought it was beautiful. It was beautiful. The male body is aesthetic. I think it's lovely. I was the fat kid and uncoordinated when I was young, so it was like the furthest thing from me, and it just seemed completely out of reach. After I got married, I developed, so the dad bod in my 30s, and I said, I don't want to do this. This is bad. So once I was working and made a little bit of money, I said, I'll get a gym membership. But I was the middle-aged guy on the elliptical who never lost any fat. I was pumping iron and never got any stronger. It's remarkable how many years you can go do the same thing and not get results. Mm-hmm. I must be a glutton for punishment. I did that, and nothing ever changed. But I kept persistent because, look, there's an ideal there that I wanted. And when I was younger, I could not go to the gym. I was intimidated by those big guys. I just couldn't be in the same room with them. I mean, it was just so far. I wanted to look big and muscular like that for so long. To see someone else and me not have it, just the shame, I guess, was what kept me from it. But I finally realized I was 53 years old, and I had a little bit of a life change, kind of another come to Jesus moment, where I realized I really needed to step up my game, and I wasn't getting any younger. And I said to my wife one day, I said, listen, I'm tired of being old, gray, fat, and ugly, and I want to do something about it. And I had found an online transformation program. It was those 12-week transformation programs. I said, I want to do this. Are you willing to support me? I said, we're going to have to change what we eat for a while. She said, that's fine. I'll support you. I think it would cost me $300. And for the first time, the fat started coming off. The muscles started going on. I started getting stronger. My diet was all off.
Previously.
I thought I was eating enough protein. I wasn't eating nearly enough protein. So once I cleaned up my diet and tripled the amount of protein, and I'm talking real food. I'm not talking living off of protein shakes either, but just consistent lean protein at every meal. Things started happening, and I said, this is great. Look, I have pushed myself spiritually. Mm-hmm. I have pushed myself academically. What would it be like to push myself physically? How far can I take this? So I said, I want to do a contest. I work real well with a deadline. So I started asking around, who does contests here? Who does this prep? I need to learn all about this. Same name came up, Ramy. Hi, Ramy. And come to find out, Ramy was a bodybuilder. He had been in 140 shows. He like missed his pro card by this much. I don't know how many times. Close personal friends with Jay Cutler. They both grew up in Las Vegas. They knew each other, all of this. And he ran most of the shows. So I went and saw Ramey one day and I said, look, I, stripped down to my skivvies, showed him what I had. I said, I'd really like to do a show. Sort of bucket list item. And Ramey laughs about this to this day. Oh, you think maybe I could do this? You just want to do this? He makes it sound much worse than it was. But he said to me, I can't guarantee you'll win, but I can guarantee you look like you belong on stage. And I said, all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's a win. So we picked the very last contest that year. It was November the 3rd. This was in early August, I think, July or August. And he put me on a contest prep diet for the first time. And I went, that year I lost 40 pounds. I went from 196 to 157. Oh, wow. I was a scrawny little chicken of a guy. It was pitiful. But I lost 40 pounds. I lost 8 inches off my waist. I went from 40-inch waist to 32, 23% body fat to 8. I saw my abs for the first time in my life.
And how old are you at this point?
I was 53 years old.
53.
Before I saw my abs. I actually got nice abs. They're like giant ravioli. I'm kind of impressed, when finally I saw them. I got no shoulders, chest is big, legs are huge to begin with, but my God, that's okay. It's like Christmas every day when you go see my abs. And so I went and did this contest and I just said, please, Jesus, I don't want to be last. Please don't let me be last. I was 5th out of 6. I was not last. And I got hooked. And I loved the process. And so I said, could we do this again? And he said, sure. So he put me on an off-season diet to bulk. He got me workouts and all. So I started off-season and I competed over the course of 10 years. I did 12 shows. I won my class eventually, so I qualified to nationals. So one of my shows was a national level show. I was trying to get my pro card. I came in 3rd, so I didn't get my pro card. But it was primo head rush. The first time I competed in men's physique, then I competed in classic physique. But the time I competed as a bodybuilder, for some reason, that was what I always wanted. Because I'm old enough to remember Arnold and Franco back in the 80s.
Like pumping iron.
Pumping iron. I saw that. Oh, yeah. So I knew all of those guys from the magazines back then. And so to be a bodybuilder, I thought, physique and classic was kind of cheating, not quite real. Tell you what, putting on that little scrap of spandex and going out on stage in front of 2,000 total strangers, that was one of the scariest things I ever did. And I noticed afterwards, most things don't faze me anymore. It was a real moment. I didn't expect that to be a result of getting on stage like that, but it was. It's like, my God, major fear conquered. Give me anything, I can take on the world.
And you beat me to it because I was going to ask you what was the biggest takeaway or value from your life, and also to your self-leadership. But that certainly is a pretty good value marker.
Out of the bodybuilding thing, yeah. That and one of the early fruits of it that I also didn't expect. So I was still in the early fat loss stage. So I'd lost about 20 pounds, which is about half of what I needed to. And this strange thing happened. All of the women in my life and in my congregation quit giving me so much shit. And the men started giving me more respect. Now, I'm an Orthodox priest. When I am on duty and at church, I wear a cassock, which is a floor-length black dress with long sleeves.
Oh, wow.
Hides everything. You can't see anything of my physique. So it wasn't the physical change that caused people to react differently. It was the emotional thing. It was the fact that I was achieving a goal. I was winning at something that had been deeply meaningful for me for all of my life, and I was doing it, and I felt stupendous. And the self-confidence came out, and it changed every relationship I had. I would never have believed it had I not experienced it for myself. And there it is. So you do things that build your own confidence, and you can change the world around you.
Father Michael, one of my leadership framework is lead yourself, lead your family, lead your empire. And this is just a very pivotal pillar and foundation of leading yourself. I'm curious, you presented today at BK Live about taking care of the golden goose. And this is kind of talking about fitness and whatnot, but what does that mean to you, if you can explain to the audience, and really what does that mean around self-leadership?
Yeah, the quotation or the image comes out of Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of those evergreen self-help, self-development books, which I can still recommend to this day. And one of the things Covey talks about is, yeah, you can get out, you can be productive, you can be effective, you can do all of this stuff, but if you don't take good care of yourself, you're like the goose that lays the golden eggs. You don't take care of the goose, you don't get any more eggs. If you don't take care of your own life, you're not fit to take care of anybody else. So I'm sure you've known those times. They're just seasons when work is overwhelming and crushing and you don't have any time and you get worn down and you're just not emotionally available, where the kids really irritate you. Or me as a priest, I would shudder when I got a text message or the phone would ring. Oh my God, somebody else needs something. I am so wrung out and drained. I don't have anything left to give. What are they going to want from me now? This is a bad attitude to have, but when you don't take care of yourself, you get that run down and you start resenting the very people you're called to help, or you start abusing your wife and your kids, taking out your frustrations on them, or just like a lot of men will just check out, go emotionally numb and distant, and you just, subside into the den and watch sports ball all day just because they got nothing left to give and they can't engage anymore. So the image is, you've really got to take care of the goose. If you're laying the golden eggs, you need to be taking care of the goose. So it seems initially for me, and again, for a priest, I like to be helpful. There's probably more than a little bit, free confession, more than a little bit of white knighting in what I do. We want to help. It's really kind of a stroke to the ego when someone's life is in crisis and one of the first people they call is me. Oh, Father Michael, Grandma went into the ER. Would you go and visit? And I get to put on the suit and fly in and provide comfort and go places where family members can't even go and that can get to your head if you let it, but you still have to take care of yourself. And if I don't, so it felt selfish, because priests were selfless. We give ourselves to our congregations. I'd like to think I'm an excellent husband and father, give myself to my family, but it seems selfish taking the time or the effort or spending money on myself to take care of my health or my mental well-being or something. And I found when I got a little selfish or just told my wife, I can't show up for you if I don't do something more for myself. She said, got it, do it. And when I got over feeling guilty for it, I realized I was much more present. The kids didn't bother me so much. I could be available to my wife. I was the pastor my congregation needed of me. And so I learned I have to be very jealous for the time that I set aside for myself. My workouts are on my calendar. I keep appointments to myself. No one can schedule that time. It's mine. And in God's great mercy, He's seen fit to allow me to wake up at about 4:30 or 5 every morning, whether I have an alarm clock or not.
Okay.
And I've been doing this for years. And nobody wants you at 5 a.m. So early mornings, that's my time. And so I get up, have prayer time with, say my rule of prayer, and then I do my creative work, or I'm by myself, and I take that time. Here, being in Scottsdale, I'm on Eastern time zone, so I woke up at 3:30 in the morning here, and as soon as it got a little bit light outside, I was outside, because the dawn in the desert here is so beautiful. So I just wanted to be outside to watch the sun come up. And I did. I was out over an hour. I found a place to sit and watch the sunrise over the mountains. It was like one of the most refreshing things I've done in ages. So, self-care doesn't necessarily mean spending a lot of money or necessarily going on a big vacation. Just find a time a day, every day, where you can spend a little quality time with yourself. Definitely take care of your health. I mean, I'm sure your audience knows all of the benefits, psychological, physical, emotional, spiritual, from just keeping yourself in good shape. No? And do those things. The quality of your own life will improve, and everybody else around you will be grateful. And even if they don't outwardly acknowledge it, the fact that you haven't mucked it up because you've shown up crotchety and grouchy for, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. and you can just show up as you want to. And it's a blessing to yourself and everybody else.
Amen. I always like to say leadership is not about you, but it starts with you.
Starts with, yes.
And that's a great framework. Now, Father Michael, one of the things that we both have a mutual passion for is really helping young men. And this is something in watching your content, watching you on podcasts, watching you on stage today, that's just kind of a common theme. So from your perspective, what sort of self-leadership issues are you seeing in today's day and age with men coming to you looking for guidance or support?
Yeah, the population that I'm largely dealing with, and this comes out of my ministry for a number of reasons. It would take us too far afield. But for a number of reasons, the Orthodox Church has been attracting huge numbers of young men. I'm talking like college age to about 35. Most of them single, but even married with very young children, it's the men that are bringing their families. I think it has to do with tradition. Orthodoxy has a reputation for being kind of the Marines of Christianity. So I think that's an appeal. We have a lot of structure. I think guys are looking, the world is chaotic, it's anxious, and I think they're looking for structure to help hold them together. So we provide a lot of structure. We have a high barrier to entry, and I think that's an appeal to them as well. But I've got this huge population of young men that have been coming in the last few years, and they all exhibit the same kind of problems. Most of them are unable to get out of late adolescence into early adulthood. There's a tripping point and they just can't quite get over it. I put it a little bit cynically, but alas, it's true. You know, they come to me, it's like 15 years of smoking weed and playing video games and jerking off to porn. It's not really a good preparation for life.
No.
And these guys have been doing a lot of that. And so they realize, I think it has to do with the development of the prefrontal cortex. That seems to come online in the 20s. And so that once that full brain development happens, then you're no longer as reactionary. You quit thinking in black and white terms. You begin to do a little more long range planning and stuff like that. So they say, I got to kind of get my life together. You know, and I don't know what to do about it, and I'm not emotionally or economically viable. No woman wants to take a second look at me because I got nothing to bring to the table. And a lot of it, as I say, is they don't know. I heard you used it as a verb. They don't know how to adult.
To adult.
Yes.
Actually, Father Michael, I'm going to interject here.
Please.
Something that you said on stage, which is super powerful. And it was about something along the lines of boys, they consume more than they produce, and then men do the opposite. So can you elaborate a little bit on that point? Because I think there's a great learning lesson for the young men in my audience that I want to hear.
Yeah. Well, what I had said was one of the big differences, a simple difference between boys and men, is that boys consume more than they produce. They're dependents, right? Okay. Men are expected to produce more than they consume. Because men are expected to provide for ourselves. I mean, that's a mark of adulthood. Come on, get out of your parents' basement, get out on your own, earn enough money, take care of yourself and your things. So you need to produce enough to take care of yourself, but also to take care of others. Because even in a modern age where women are in some areas exceeding men in levels of education and employment and even income, women are still looking for men who are at least on parity if they don't earn more than themselves. So men are still socially expected to be able to provide. And a lot of young guys haven't quite hit their stride on that yet, either because they're immature, they're wasting their time on games, or trading crypto on Coinbase and stock on Robinhood, or God knows what all they're doing now. But they realize they need to do something. Or even if they've done everything right, they've gone to college, they've got a great career, they got a great degree, but they're stuck with 80 grand in college debt, or they're stuck in some entry-level salary that's just not paying well. Not yet. And so they find themselves very frustrated. And young women are kind of frustrated with them too. Half of young women are dating much older men because they got a job, they got a house, they can actually provide. And the young guys are a little bit shut out of that. Some get a bit resentful. I get it. I try to be encouraging in this respect too, though, because average age of first marriage in the United States right now, do you know what it is?
No.
29 and a half.
What was it like 15, 20 years ago? Do you have any
Well,
idea?
I got married at 25.
Yeah.
My mother, I know, married at 19.
My mother was 26 and she thought she was an old hen, in her words. And this was like in the 70s.
Yes. Well, my wife is 4 years older than me. And she was like all of 29 when we got married. Actually, we joke about it because we said, you know, she was so much older than I was that she would either have to adopt me or marry me. And there was more fun in marriage. So we decided to go that route. But so I try to be encouraging. Look, guys, you haven't hit your stride yet. You're not going to really bloom or blossom into your own until you're like in your early 30s. Okay. So try to have a little patience with it until then. And try to develop yourself. And I get this from Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway, he's a podcaster. He's a business professor at Stern School of Business in New York. He's noted the issues that young men have, and he's got some great information on it. And he recommends 3 things to young men to do. And I think they're brilliant, and I've been passing them on myself. So that's first, get freakishly strong. Just go to the gym, get as strong as you possibly can. The lessons you learn in the gym are fungible. They'll translate into the rest of life. He puts it, he says, you ought to have a plan to either kill or outrun anybody in any room that you go into. All right? And you will never regret the lessons and the strength that you have. You'll never be stronger than you are when you're like 19 years old. So go and do that. Second, get a job. Once you get a taste for money and you see what money can do for you, you will always want to have some and you will be willing to work for it. And third, put yourself in a situation where you have to encounter all different kinds of people. People who are like yourself, people who are radically unlike yourself, people you may not actually like, and learn to get along with them. And it says if you learn those basic skills, you'll be light years ahead of everybody else. You learn to deal with any and every kind of person. Sweet social skills, which is increasingly rare nowadays because, you know, with for either virtual or, you know, video games or just a lot of virtual reality, people are not learning genuine interaction. And I mean, you've probably seen it. I encountered one, where was I? Oh, it was at a wedding. It was at a wedding I did recently. And someone introduced me to her 13-year-old son, you know, and the kid was kind of, you know, shoulders slumped, you know, eyes cast down. Hey, Scott, you know, how are you? It was like, you know, this limp handshake like this, you know, I just, what the hell? You know, no one taught, he's 13 years old. He doesn't know how to look a man in the eyes, how to shake hands and say, hello, my name is Scott. You know, it's like, I almost wept, you know. See, I want to kind of whump him upside the head, you know, and give him a lesson in masculinity right there. But it was not the time or the place, and not really my place to be abusing somebody else's kid. But, you know, it's like I've seen lots of young people like that. I mean, even into their 20s, these guys who can't look people in the eye, they no social skills whatsoever, maladroit, awkward. So learning to be around people. And I understand even, I heard some businessmen complaining about this, that, what is it, Gen Z or whatever the youngest group is right now.
I think Gen Z.
Gen Z. It's like, they can't function in meetings. It's like so virtual. Because they've done all of their communication virtually and in text messages and all, they don't get sarcasm. They don't get inflection and tone of voice. They do not pick up on any body language because they've not been exposed to it because they've just been online all the time.
Because we're technology immigrants, where the younger generation, Gen Z, they grew up.
They are natively, yeah. But they get around a group of people where you and I will pick up on something, you know, we'll catch a joke or we'll realize that sarcasm and not take it literally. They don't know what the hell's going on. And so their anxiety goes through the roof because they don't know how to interact. So get freakishly strong in the gym, go out and get a job. You know, even if it's driving, you know, Uber Eats, but go get a job and start contributing, especially for men. It's hardwired into us. We want to provide something, so we need to add value. So even if you've got very young people, you've got teenagers in your audience, let them find some kind of job, even if it's very part-time or incidental or just episodic now and again, but to where they have something they can offer, they can add value somehow and be rewarded for it and acknowledged for it. It goes a long way. And then be around all different kinds of people. Those are good lessons.
Incredible lessons. I want to dive in a little bit the spirituality angle.
Sure.
So we talked a little bit about some of the self-leadership concerns that you're seeing young men. They're coming to the church, the Orthodox Church specifically for structure. How would you say the faith, the religion, the spirituality is helpful in self-leadership, self-development, self-growth, and productivity to society?
Yeah. One of the things that I say, and I said it in the class, and I believe this sincerely. St. Augustine has the best quotation and one-liner on it. At the very beginning of his famous book, The Confessions, he's talking to God. Very first paragraph, and he says, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." And I believe that sincerely, and that's for people of faith and people without faith. We are called to something transcendent. We need to serve something bigger than ourselves. Who is that old jazz singer? It just occurs, who's that old jazz singer? You're going to have to serve somebody. Well, it may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Some classical jazz song. I'm embarrassed I can't remember the singer now. One of your audience will know.
Drop it in the comments, please.
Yeah, drop it in there. Put it in the comments so I can find it and learn. But I think there is a calling on our hearts, and men especially, we want to serve something bigger than ourselves. And alas, in our day, the military seems a little tarnished. The nation seems a little tarnished. Christ and his church, God, even if you're not a Christian, to serve God in some way is a very high calling. And men feel this noble need. It resonates something in our hearts to serve something really big, to be a part of something huge. And even if you're not a religious person, I think Arthur Brooks said this, you need to do something that makes yourself small and the universe huge. Mm-hmm. And I think that touches something in the male soul, and we need to serve something bigger than ourselves.
Is that where the fulfillment comes?
Yes, that's where the fulfillment comes from. I'm doing something meaningful in my life. John Eldridge caught this in Wild at Heart, where it says, you find your place in a bigger story. And once you understand what the bigger story is and you can find your place, you can be at peace because you know where you belong. This is my rank. This is my file. This is my calling. This is what I need to do. And men love that. What do I need to do? Yes, sir. I can go do it.
Yes.
I think that's part of the reason why they like orthodoxy. A lot of these young guys, I tell them,
the structure.
The structure. We have a rule of prayer. These are the days you fast. These are the services you come to. While you're here, you stand. You cross yourself at these places. You bow now. You make prostrations then. Yada, yada, yada. It's
structure
and detail. And yeah, for all of that, it's really not as rigid as I make it sound. And some people find our services almost chaotic because people are so loose in some respects, but there is a clear structure that everyone still manages to follow.
Father Michael, sorry to interject, but that speaks to me.
Okay.
Ever since a young man, I wanted structure, I wanted guidance. So I can understand, to your point, so when you're letting me or, telling me in the audience that's an attractive quality.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think at least I can't speak to, well, yes, I can. Orthodoxy is attracting young men in droves, but it's not just the Orthodox Church. The most traditional Roman Catholic parishes are attracting young men as well. Not the liberal ones, the very traditional. I'm talking Latin Mass and very, very conservative ones. And even in some Protestant circles, I understand in Calvinist churches, Reformed churches that are very conservative, young men are coming to them as well. And I know that because we sometimes get some guys who are a little immature coming in, and they tend to be reactionary. And in the Orthodox Church, we call these ortho bros.
Ortho bros.
The ortho bros, yeah, are a bit of a scourge. And I learned to be patient with them, but they're the first ones to call, that father, he's not traditional. Those people are heretics. No, you have to do it this way. That's not canonical. This isn't scriptural. Very reactionary and very judgmental. It comes out of woundedness. They're scared and they're hurt. They need so much structure that any deviation causes their anxiety to go through the roof. Okay? They can come across as really obnoxious, but there's a scared little boy in there.
Yeah.
And I know, so I was one at one time. So I know this from personal experience. Back before there was interwebs, 40 years ago, I was one. So God helped me, and he was merciful to me. And God bless the people of St. Seraphim Cathedral in Dallas. They just loved me through it until I calmed down, and then it was better. So, but the Orthodox Church has orthobros. In the Catholic Church, they call them rad trads, for radical traditionalists. And the Calvinists called them cage stage, because they should be locked in a cage until they get past that stage. Then they can be let out and mingle with the rest of the church. Okay, but so it's a sociological thing. There's just, again, this attraction for, I think, a high calling for a transcendent purpose to serve God with some structure and with very clear theology, which is a plus and a minus, because a lot of guys live in their heads all the time. So you get a church with some real deep theology, it tends to attract a lot of men. And so the problem then is to get them out of their heads and into their hearts and humanize the deers, And if we can do that, they generally turn out okay. So
I think that sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Now, the opposite of this, and this is something you shared on stage, where does the lack of fulfillment come from? Because I think that's also important for our audience to fully understand this, so that way they can, move towards the light.
I know for older men, and by older, I'll just say like maybe 45 at the latest, this sort of midlife crisis stuff. So I'd say somewhere between 35 and 45, a lot of men come to the realization that they have climbed the ladder of success only to discover it's leaning against the wrong wall. They've done, well, like I said, in sort of my great moment of insight, these guys have done everything right. They have done everything they've been told to do, and they haven't lived their own life. They don't feel fulfilled. They're working for the man, for a corporation that really doesn't give a damn about them, working on a project that's not really fulfilling, or what are they really contributing? And it can precipitate a kind of crisis. And that's where a lot of us, second careers, second careers, midlife crisis, whatnot, start an entrepreneurial enterprise and all that. So you get some of these older guys that do it because they're just not fulfilled in everything that they've done. And they realize that sort of, I don't want to say just worldly things, but everything that they thought was necessary or that they had been told. And then they discover it's not as fulfilling, it's not as great as I thought it was going to be. Or they've milked it for all it's worth. It was great, but that stage is over and it's time to do something else. But they sometimes are stuck or they're afraid. They need the income. They got kids and a mortgage. They're beaten down, they're worn down, whatever. And then they just end up kind of slaving away. And you've met those older men, they're just defeated. And it's unfortunate. It breaks your heart to see them. I think for younger guys to be unfulfilled, again, the isolation. A lot of them really struggle. They're sorry that they're addicted to the porn.
Yep. I just had a conversation today.
Yeah.
Literally 15 minutes before we
it was where I was in conversation about it myself. And it's just one of a number of things. But they find we really do need to serve something bigger than ourselves. And for a lot of guys, they've never been presented with that. And so they are hungry for it. I was, one of the attendees here works with gangs, like in Los Angeles. I think he was with the LAPD.
Oh, wow.
And so he was on the gang division for a while. And working with these kids, he said they just don't know any better. They don't know how to behave. They don't know how to control themselves. So anybody who comes along that gives them meaning and recognition and a place to belong and acts as a father figure, they're going to gloam to them because they lack that in their lives, And I guess where lack of fulfillment, lack of something meaningful to do. Because I think genuinely, life is most satisfying when we have something meaningful and, as I say, transcendent, bigger than ourselves that we can serve and work towards. And I mean, that doesn't have to be some, grand, gigantic thing. You don't have to slay dragons, or take on the whole world. But I mean, honorably providing for your wife and your kids, stepping up for them, and doing it, if you can, with a smile on your lips and a song in your heart is a beautiful thing. But for a lot of the guys, they've never had that, and no one has shown them. So to introduce them, I don't know that much about your program, but to introduce especially younger men to things that are noble, to things that are that are a little bit higher calling, to call them out, to recognize and say, bro, you got this. Mm-hmm. Come on. You're better than this. Mm-hmm. I see it. I believe. That Richard Simmons thing. I believe in you. You believe in you. Come on. It sounds cheesy, but there's something to it. It's grounded in truth. And for a lot of guys, especially guys, don't get a lot of affirmation. And growing up, God bless my parents, I didn't get that much. They were not interested in the things that I developed interest in. And so, I marched in band, mostly to get out of PE, because I was fat and awkward, and I hated PE with a passion. So I joined marching band. But I loved music, and it worked out well for me. So that was a real win. They rarely, if ever, came to my games, or they rarely, if ever, come to my concerts. Well, it's not our kind of music. That's not the point. Mm-hmm. It's not the point. It's to support your boy.
Amen.
And simply to support them and let them explore things. I let my kids explore whatever. I have 2 boys. I let them explore whatever they wanted to explore, and tried to be encouraging. And because I didn't get that much encouragement or affirmation when I was young, I have actually gone out of my way to do that for my boys. And we have an incredible relationship now. I am so damn proud of the men that they have become, and I love them with a fierce love, and they know it. Mm. And I mean, it's man hugs every time we meet. It is. And they're open with me. They tell me stuff. They tell me stuff they don't tell their mother.
I'm sure.
Because we got that, and I have their backs, and they know that.
Yep.
I mean, we had the struggles growing up, like every kid and does with every father, but we got through them, and in time we with patience and all, we keep both sides come out the other end, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, it's a good segue to my final kind of topic, if you will, talking about fulfillment and really men needing a blueprint. And I know the cardinal virtues are something that you've really studied, and I've taken a study for them myself. Specifically, I'll go ahead and cite them: justice, courage, moderation, and prudence.
Yes.
So extremely strong virtues, and I would love for you to just unpack that, maybe what you learned, and then how do you coach your young men to use them as a blueprint to live a better and more fulfilled life?
Okay. Part of my undergraduate degree was in archetypal psychology. So I did a lot of Jungian work and archetypes and symbolism. But I had a minor in ancient philosophy as well. So I read Plato and Aristotle and the Stoics and all that. So I come by the virtues early on. And they're also called, in Roman Catholic theology, they're called the natural virtues, on which the supernatural virtues of faith, hope, and love are built. And this was actually said, I found this passage by St. John of Damascus, who was an Orthodox saint of the 9th century. He was Syrian, so he lived in Damascus. And he said, courage, moderation, prudence, and justice are the 4 virtues on which all other virtues are built, including faith, hope, and love, which I found astonishing. And then I got to thinking about it. And you see, what we need to do is, faith, hope, and love, or the churches are very good at helping men to be good men. But the young guys that are coming in are not good at being men. Mm-hmm. Well, Jack Donovan's distinction, okay? So part of what I've been doing with the young guys who have been coming is helping them to be good at being men before I try to make Christians out of them. I can't have Christian men if they're wimps and wusses. God knows we've got enough of those.
Yes, we do.
So I start with courage, and for those in your audience who are Christian, the natural virtues, the cardinal virtues, were taken up completely and wholly into the Christian tradition. They're fully embedded in the Christian tradition. In fact, they're called cardinal virtues for the first time by St. Ambrose of Milan in Milan, Italy, in the 4th century.
In the 4th century.
Yes, and cardinal doesn't mean red like the bird. Cardinal in Latin means a hinge. So they're the virtues on which all other virtues hinge. Without them, you don't have anything else. The ancients conceived the soul as having three fundamental powers, two emotions. One was desire, something that pulls in this way. And the other is zeal, which pushes out that away. And so desire needs regulation. What is the optimization? What is arete? What is excellence of the desiring capacity of the human soul? They said it's moderation. What about this zeal that rushes out, that all too often manifests as anger? What is the most optimal, excellent form of that aspect of humanity? Courage. The mind, the intellect, which supposed to sit above the emotions and govern the emotional part of us. Our intellect, what is its perfection? It's to use wisdom and apply wisdom to a given particular situation so that you know the best and optimal thing to do in this context. That's prudence, practical wisdom. And then justice is the well-formed man with a well-formed soul. How does he interact with everybody around himself? And that's justice. And so you can take these four and build an excellent life out of them. And the first one to learn, though, is courage. And young men need to learn courage. And again, because a lot of them are impulsive, impetuous, so we need to learn. You can't quash it. You can't squash this spirit. You need to learn to channel it so that it has its optimal expression, its best possible expression. And so I help guys to develop courage. And how do you develop courage? I said it in my talk.
You did.
Small wins, stack up wins every day because it comes out of confidence. And you win at very little things. And even, that's why Jordan Peterson was so brilliant. He says, I call him Uncle Jordan because we're kind of the same age. He says, so do what Uncle Jordan says and make your bed. If that's all you do, that's one little win. And so you stack up these little wins day by day by day, and you gain in confidence and you gain in courage. So you learn how to, I encourage you guys, well, I can't talk to women. I get all choked up. I get all nervous. Well, talk to the old guy behind you in line at the supermarket. Hey, dude, I like that beer. Whatever. Just talk to people. No, don't want anything. Just idle conversation. You get used to just talking to anybody and everybody. Then when it comes around to a girl, hey, again, it's not so much a big deal. So stack up little wins in little ways. You don't start deadlifting 315. No. You start with an empty bar. You put 95 pounds on it. You get good at that. What's the progressive, lifting? Yeah. So get up to where you can do 8 to 12 reps, add weight to the bar. So you can do 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps, add weight to the bar, progressive overload. We do the same thing with virtue. We do the same thing with our lives. Start small. You say, oh my God, it's so embarrassingly small. Nobody needs to know, but it compounds. And so you'll look back in a week, you'll look back in a month, you look back in a year, and you will be amazed at how far you've gone. And it just spins. I guess the other analogy is like, what is that? What's the big stone that you have to get going? I forget it. What's the word?
The stone?
Stone. Where it takes so much effort to start something off, and then once it gets going, it continues to go on.
Avalanche.
An avalanche is a good, because that compounds. Correct. And it does. Oh, what is it? I'm ashamed of myself. Someone will know what I'm talking about.
Drop in the comments, my friends.
Yeah, tell me what it is I'm talking about. But there are some things that's like they're very, very hard to get going.
Like a boulder.
Yeah, or it's like a big grindstone. But you once you kind of get it going, then it's like you're pushing kids on the merry-go-round. It's very hard at the beginning, but once you get it going, it's easier. Then it takes just a little bit to keep it going later on.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, so it's hardest up front, but I promise you, it gets better and it gets easier, and you will be amazed at the progress you make. It's always the most difficult is starting. In the spiritual life, the devil opposes us with prayer. Prayer is warfare to the last breath, the fathers tell us. Once you start praying, it's easy, and then it's sweet, and you enjoy doing it. But you have to force yourself often to do it. You have to force yourself to go to the gym. I've had to force myself many days, but once I'm there, man, there's no place on earth I'd rather be.
Amen.
And so that's what you do. Just be encouraged. Start small. you'll find the courage to do later. And then later, from courage, you'll learn to moderate your desires, not to want too much or too little, but you'll find the sweet spot, and you'll learn to be prudent later. But especially for young men, I think it's tied to sort of like warrior energy or warrior archetype or young men's initiation. I think that's all wrapped up, and courage plays a big part in that. So, like I say, learn to stand up for yourself, to trust in your own opinions, to look another man in the eye, to shake hands firmly, to have a little bit of faith in yourself, that you can stand up, like that Jordan Peterson puts in a chapter, stand up with your shoulders back.
Yeah.
Stand up straight.
Yeah.
Studies show it raises your testosterone level. Just physical posture will do that,
Sure.
Command presence, police officers, they study that and they learn it. So you can learn to stand up straight. You can learn to, forgive me, I'll be mildly vulgar. You can learn to walk into a room dick first. And, that's a sweet skill when you can learn to do that. And just it's confidence and poise, but it comes from practicing small things to where I got this arsenal of skills. I'm okay. Like today, when I had to go stand up in front of 600-700 total strangers out there, I could do it. Why? Because, I practiced talking. I know how to talk. I prepped. I'm ready. I know what I'm going to say. And all it's a matter of doing is just executing. So by that was the fun part.
Yeah.
And the audience interaction, that was kind of cool,
Oh, yeah.
Back and forth. So, yeah, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. And so be encouraged. Be encouraged. And it doesn't matter where you are, just start where you are. Do what you're able to do. And then take the next step and build on it. And you'll amaze yourself. And I look forward when after you've amazed yourself, then you can amaze me. And you can amaze everybody else around yourself. And the world will be a better place for you because the world needs you. The world needs young men right now. They need young men to step into their authority and their power and the fullness of their manhood and give their gifts to the world.
Amen. Friends, I really hope you heard that message because this is what this show is all about. So, Father Michael, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up today, I have one final question. The name of this podcast is the CEO Show, the Chief Executive Officer Show. Father Michael, to you, what does it mean to be a CEO?
For me to be a CEO,
what does it mean to you?
Mean to me?
Yeah.
In my situation as a husband, as a father, and as a priest, that means taking care of my people, putting them first, seeing to their needs. In a nutshell, that's it. And that means sometimes I have to get out of the way of my own ego to do it. Sometimes I eat last. Sometimes there's no coffee left by the time I get to coffee hour because I got to take care of business and people who need me before I can relax. And I'm the last one who gets to relax. Do you know what? I'm okay with that.
And that is an incredible definition of a CEO, Father Michael.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, before we wrap today, I just wanted to thank you first and foremost. It's been a pleasure meeting you over this past few days.
Thank you. It has been fun.
And really appreciate you taking the time to be able to pour into our audience. But most importantly, I want to thank you for your wisdom, for your care and compassion. I've been attracted to you from the first time we connected just a couple days ago. And I know you've added a lot of value to our audience, but also me as well. So I want to thank you and acknowledge you for that.
All righty. Much obliged. Pleased to be of service. And if a final moment of shameless self-promotion.
Please.
If I can be of service to you or to anyone in your audience, if I'm able to be, I'm happy to. Just let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And where can our audience find you? I know you're on social and Instagram. Do you have a handle?
Yeah, I do have a handle. It's average to alpha, AVG numeral 2 alpha. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, long form stuff on YouTube, and God help me, I'm even on TikTok. But that's because Bedros told me I had to be on TikTok. I wouldn't be there, but he said you have to be there because my audience is actually migrating towards TikTok. So I'm there on the ground floor. So when they come looking for what I have to offer, I'm already an established presence. So
my friends, Father Michael on social, on IG, on TikTok, no reason for you not to be. I want to thank you again. And friends, remember, adversity is your advantage, and we'll see you in the next episode.